it's time for our emotional weather report of the week, where we ask Crimson what exactly is in the air for our emotional endurance movement members. So, Crimson, how's everybody doing this week?
Well, I'm happy to report that emotional endurance is up this week. Not only is our movement growing, but we are seeing better results. Among our movement, we are seeing a emotional endurance index of 67%, which is up almost 6 points from last week. But that still means two out of every three of us are struggling with the capacity to get through the day. So the skill or the score went up, but the margin's still thin. But let's unpack why we're seeing 67% in our index. Our index is made up of our psychological capital score. And if you look at our psychological capital, we are seeing optimism at 76, hope 72. And both of those, optimism is actually up 10 points, which is the highest of the year, while hope is also up another 8 points. And so we saw this trend. And so for 2 weeks now, we have been seeing a trend up for hope and optimism. But for some reason, we're not seeing resilience go up. Resilience actually dropped 5 full points this week while everything else went up. And so I guess we're not springing into spring like we had hoped to, or maybe we're not springing out of winter as we had hoped that we would. When we are struggling with resilience, we can show up dysregulated. And where are we showing up dysregulated? Unfortunately, a lot of us are showing up dysregulated at work and at home. Dealing with our finances also came in the top three. Dysregulation at work is a problem, and that's part of what this movement is about. Even if our cups are empty and even if we are struggling, we have to learn how to show up regulated. We have to hardwire that resilience in. And so, what doesn't get processed at work gets processed at home, as we all know. So, these things would be correlated when things are getting really rough at work. So, people living with high functioning people are quietly falling apart and they're feeling it. And so, we need to think about how to get out of this trend and how to break the cycle. So let's talk about how we're filling our cups. So to fill our cups in the past week, a lot of us reached for our screens, vegged out, and went outside and hopefully exercised because that one dropped off the top three list. None of these are wrong. They all make sense when we're feeling tired, and that might be why we're feeling less resilient. But this is what the data is saying. We are refilling and still coming back a little depleted there. So our nervous system doesn't recover by doing nothing. It recovers by doing something safe. And we're doing a little bit of that. But screen time and vegging out might be becoming unhealthy coping skills when done too much. And our movement is reporting a lot of coping and filling our cups through these mechanisms. So it's not about they're wrong. It's about being aware and the intention behind it. So if they're filling your cups and you're reporting it as so, that's fine. All right, let's go into our emotional endurance movement advisory. Spring ambition trap. So what do I mean by that? Feeling like because it's spring, you're just going to be motivated. Your standards are just rising higher than your capacity. So it goes back to how do you build that capacity to meet your new standards for the bandwidth you want to have to enjoy your spring. The other thing worth noting is the resilience debt that we're reporting. You may need to fill your cup before addressing problems. So it goes back to how are we filling up our cups effectively? Because we're not reporting the resilience we should. So maybe, numbing out on this one isn't going to work for us. Which brings us to our challenge of the week. I was thinking about what can we do as a movement to help restore ourselves. And I want all of us to do one restorative activity that's attached to zero productivity. And that is going to be hard. I have not figured out what mine is, but we will report back next week on what we did that was restorative and had zero productivity attached to it. Mine's probably going to be a dance party, just a preview. But that also is a very common one. So I recommend everyone just try to think of something that you can do for yourself that has no return. You get no check in your box. You're just doing it to do it. And then in closing, so ultimately, the gap between how ambitious we're feeling right now and how much our cups are filled is quite large. So let's try to lower expectations or fill our cups a little bit more. The sun's shining, illness is dying down, we're feeling good. But the problem is we're not filling our cups up enough to meet all of our expectations. So good luck. And don't forget to take our survey next week and be part of the movement again.
Yeah, I liked what you said about like you may have to rest and restore before you intervene in the problem. And I do think that we are all like chronically exhausted right now, and there's so much stuff going on. And I think there's a lot of tension right now because, like, what do we do? What do we do with all of this? And I do think that it's going to require all of us to like restore ourselves a little bit, right?
We all need,
And build up the
yeah,
emotional endurance
yeah,
to
build up those
have some real
core,
conversations.
yeah, the core components. You need to build up hope and optimism. And we're doing pretty good with hope and optimism. I'm kind of surprised by that. But I think we're tired of having to be resilient.
I think the resiliency of just everyday life is one thing. I think we're also dealing with some unprecedented circumstances. Well, maybe they're precedent, but they're increasingly escalating situations. So maybe part of the novelty of it is impacting our resilience, or maybe we're just tired of literal decades of increasing wackadoodle wackiness. Gosh, that's a sanitized way to talk about this, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, what you're saying, girl. So that's it for the forecast. Let's hope next week we see our resilience go up a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Crimson.